Shoot me in a dream, you better wake up and apologize.
You can stuff your sorries in a sack, mister.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
I'm sorry!
Congratulations! You've unlocked All Apologies, a show about apology tours and demanding satisfaction. I'm your host, Trucker Andy, and with me, as always, is your co-host, Joe Sixpack. Joe, what's going on?
Nothing except for every technical difficulty that I could possibly muster in my life right now. I don't know what or why, but this is a very cobbled together situation. Well, the thing that's most disappointing for me is that I'm really excited about the show we have today. And so I insist on doing it no matter the quality or challenges that face us. So
it would have been a good show. If it wasn't for your shitty background and your technical difficulties.
it would have been a good show if I didn't want to smash this computer against the desk I'm at right now. No, it freaking has been enjoying looking at all of the Hackamania aftermath coming through and all of that stuff. Hoping that Rocco's doing well. Did you see his whole
I reached out to
thing about his health?
Yeah, I texted him. He said that he's fine. It's not
Good.
anything serious, but I wished him well, and I didn't pry. I just wanted him to know that we're all hoping for the best with whatever he has going on. But and it's none of my business, and he didn't fill me
What
in.
what a trooper of
business.
what a trooper of him to make sure that the show went off though and everything too. It sounds like he wasn't maybe necessarily tip top, or hopefully it was after everything. But I know it was a big deal, and it sounded like they had a great time.
Yeah.
This is a little old, because we had a bag. Andy and I had off last week, or we had put up a backup episode, right, leading up to last week. So this is our first back.
Yeah, we knew we were going to be away, so we recorded Jerry Seinfeld like way ahead of time. So it's been a minute, but
we're coming a little out of practice.
Yeah, yes. So is your computer?
Yeah, my computer's out of practice. Stupid piece of shit.
Okay. Well, I'm very excited. We were starting late because we've been troubleshooting, so we're going to get right into it. And we have a pretty great episode, I feel like, because these are two different, it's kind of the same sort of problem, but approached from two different angles. And it's most interesting because it involves both the creators of Rick and Morty, Justn Roiland and Dan Harmon. They both had Me Too incidents, not right around Justn later, but it's all sexual misconduct and allegations and what's a fucking animation dork to do with all these women troubles. So I'd like to start with the person that's handled it all wrong, and then move on to the somebody else that is maybe navigating it a little bit better. So in 2020, all this kind of came out in 2023, but in 2020, Justn Roiland was arrested and charged with felony domestic violence for an incident involving an unnamed woman, who basically his girlfriend, he was dating at the time. And the charges included one felony count of domestic battery and with corporal injury. Have you ever even heard that? Corporal injury?
No, I can only assume it's like similar to saying wet reckless in regards to like drinking and driving, where it's just maybe like corporate, like manslaughter, like a lower version of manslaughter or something. I don't know.
I did look it up. It said some type of minor or serious physical injury that results in a traumatic condition. So what is wet reckless, Joe? I've never heard of that.
It's just another term for like a DUI. It's my rap name.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like that. I made my liver wet and then got reckless behind the wheel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that was the corporal injury, and then one felony count of false imprisonment by menace, violence, fraud, and or deceit. So he
He
somehow,
wouldn't let me leave.
yeah, yeah.
Ed's doing the background research. Wet reckless is an informal term for a plea bargain reached where someone charged with a DUI receives a lesser charge, usually for reckless driving. The charge is called wet because reckless charges do not include driving under the influence of a DUI.
All right. So all this shit is with Justin. It's very eye patch Morty, right? This is the sinister, deceptive Morty that is trying to lock his girlfriend in the bathroom because she wants to. He's going diddy on her or something.
He's gonna Pistorius her and shoot her through the bathroom door.
Yeah. And now there's another incident where Roiland sexually assaulted one woman after meeting her on Tinder, which to me that struck me as odd because I've never been on Tinder, but isn't that the whole point, that you're showing up for some kind of sexual encounter? So for a girl to be like, "Oh my god, I showed up for my Tinder date and Morty wanted to go see my Mrs. Poopy Butthole," and of course, it's a fucking Tinder date. What did you think was
Yeah.
going to happen?
She was looking for love, Andy.
Yeah, right. But God, Tinder, seems like such a fucking nightmare. I don't know how people. I mean, dating always is, but Tinder seems like the worst version of it to
Mhm.
me. As far as like finding
Well,
somebody that you want to
it's nowhere
stay
to. Right, right. It's no way to. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of Gen Zers out there that would disagree, but it doesn't
with.
seem like the way to meet somebody. It's a hookup app. You know,
Yeah.
you're hooking up, not meeting your wife.
Yeah, sound off in the comments if you met your significant other and stayed with them for, got married to your Tinder date. I want to
After
know. I
you
want to know if Tinder worked out for you.
after you hit it raw on the first date, did you marry her?
Yeah, that's the kind of girl I want to take home to my mom. The girl that raw dogs
Yeah.
it on the first date. So
Hmm.
Justin leveraged his fame to uh, start relationships with young fans, including some who were underage, citing.
Oh, so it's a Dalia grooming.
Yeah. There was 11 people who provided thousands of text messages, that some of which I have. We're going to get to that at the end. But, between these 11 people with the receipts and Justin, and from 2013 to 2022. So it's almost a decade of this guy being a creep on Tinder and Facebook with fans of the show. And
On
I just
Facebook.
well,
That's
what social media?
that goes back.
Yeah, it's
If you were
2013.
if you were grooming on Facebook, you're Snapchatting a 21-year-old now.
Yeah. Do you think Justin ever tried to play the interdimensional card when he was getting charged with all these things? It's like that wasn't me, Justin. That was 616 Justin. That was
Yeah.
the Justin with the twisty mustache, not me.
My uncle-in-law proposed this world where obviously everybody's heard about like parallel universes or the multiverse or interdimensional stuff, and he was calling it, I think, like mini dimensions or something like that, where you could be like, in this dimension I'm a lizard and in this dimension I'm a peacock, but here I'm Joe Sixpack. Like you could be a different being completely in these other mini dimensions. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I like that theory.
Of you being a peacock.
Me peacocking around.
Yeah.
Ed says I'm a loser. Sorry for telling you a thing I heard. Anyway,
9 of the 11 accusers said that Justin turned their exchanges sexual after they reportedly began on dating apps or social media, and in some cases involved in-person dates. and 3 said that they were only 16 when they began talking to him, though they didn't say that they met him in person. They were
Did they tell him they were 16 at the time?
we're gonna get into that, but you know, some of the creepiness about finding creeps on Tinder shouldn't be that surprising, right? That there's creeps on Tinder. It's not that weird of a conclusion to leap to.
Like, these 16-year-olds are so disappointed, or they are thrilled to, like, talk to Justn Roiland
Yeah,
online. What's
yeah.
he supposed to do? Like, what are you supposed to do? Ignore your fan base? Like, I saw some woman taking, Justin Long to task at one point because this girl, like, was going after Justin Long in kind of a sexual way, and she was underage, and he's just like, I don't like you like that, but also he didn't just like cut the conversation off. And she's
Mhm.
just like, oh, he kind of liked it because it's just like, well, they're fans. I
Yeah,
mean, they may be being inappropriate, but you just want to like act like an asshole to everybody. Like, just because he didn't cut the conversation off immediately doesn't make him a groomer. I don't know. So feels
right.
like that to me.
Or like,
Justin Roiland's got plenty of underage fans.
yeah, that's true. But if you're somebody on Tinder and you find a creep, it's like, don't be shocked. You don't go to the beach and then act surprised that there's sand there. There's fucking
Also,
creeps on Tinder.
you shouldn't be on Tinder if you're 16. If you're
Well,
under 18, you should not be on Tinder.
that's true, but it did say social media, so this is probably him just mining his fan base on social media, um,
I'm
for
going to be
for
victim.
grooming purposes.
I'm going to be victim blaming throughout this episode.
Yeah,
And by the way,
yeah, just for the jokes. Don't worry about it.
no,
All fun. It's all for okay. So then a different woman from one of the other people pressing charges against him said that he sexually assaulted her, forcing her to perform a sexual act after she had told him no. And Roiland apologized in a text message to her after she confronted him about it. So I don't have that.
define it.
Well,
Mormons would say that holding hands is a sexual act. What do you
yeah,
say? Show me your tits. I don't,
yeah. Did he place your hand on his uh jeans covered crotch, or did he stuff his dick in your mouth? Yeah, that's vague. But
right. Yeah, let's get specific.
okay, you want to get specific? I can't talk.
You want to
Um,
get specific?
yeah. So Roiland and his lawyers have repeatedly denied the allegations made against him and criticized the media and public of being quick to judge without
Me too.
knowing the facts. So
Me too. I'm with them.
let's get hashtag me too from Joe Sixpack.
Mhm.
All right. So this is the statement that Justin issued in my slide 1, Ed, please, if you will. I'll read that. Okay. So Justin says, I have always known that these claims were false, and I never had any doubt that this day would come. I'm thankful that this case has been dismissed, but at the same time, I'm still deeply shaken by the horrible lies that were reported about me during this process. Most of all, I'm disappointed that so many people were so quick to judge without knowing the facts based solely on the word of an embittered ex trying to bypass due process and have me canceled. That it may have succeeded, even partially, is shameful. However, now that the legal case has ended, I'm determined to move forward and focus both on my creative projects and restoring my good name. And these projects,
Very
of course, include Rick and Morty. Solar Opposites was just getting rolling. God, I can't talk tonight.
Roiland.
Just getting Roiland. And he had some other thing called Koala Man. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
On top of like some other like video games and shit that he was producing.
Mm. It's very Chris Hardwick sounding.
Hmm.
The situation with Chris Hardwick sounds very similar to
On
this.
the surface, you would think that, and unfortunately, there are cases like the Hardwick case, the Aziz Ansari case. These things that people that they tried to Me Too that kind of came to light that it wasn't so egregious. It's like,
Mhm.
so you can say, well, maybe Justn Roiland falls in that bucket. Or you can look at these text threads and realize that he doesn't, and he's a fucking creep and he's a fucking piece of shit. Clip 2 or slide 2 here, Ed. Joe, do you want to do the thing where you read you read half and I read it?
It's gonna have to be much larger than that if we're gonna do that. I can't
Okay,
really see it.
I'll read. I'll just read it. Okay. This is fucking. It's awful, but it's also kind of fucking hilarious.
Can you read it?
I,
Can you
I
try and read it like Morty?
maybe I sound enough like Morty as it is, don't I? Well, actually, this one is a different character. Yeah, this is a different character that's not Morty. Joe, you're gonna when I start reading this. Ed, what's up?
Oh, never mind. I was going to be Morty.
Your camera's not.
Oh, okay.
It's too much.
So Justn starts out by saying, "Oh yeah, sorry, at the airport. It's insane in the membrane. What time is it there now?" And then this girl who turns out to be 16 says it's 11:37, and he says, "Oh, so rate is so rate and me so Chinese." And then she replies, "I have school tomorrow." Double frowny face. "Oh, school tomorrow? Oh no." And she says FMLLL. Fuck my life. Justn finishes us off with, "You should just run away from home and go into sex slavery, you fucking stupid F slur bitch. JK." And then she says, "You wish, you stupid bitch." Okay.
Well, I don't know.
So this is
It's
an
hard.
interaction that he's having with a 16-year-old girl.
Mm.
And it doesn't end there. The next slide 3, please, Ed. This is the same girl. I think it's the same thread, but it continues with Justn saying, "Is it cool being a jailbait? Does the FBI follow you around, arresting all the men you sleep with? Why are you such jailbait? What's wrong with you in that regard? You should grow older, you dumb bitch. Would you do video game reviews and stuff like that? I bet you'd do good." And then she just says, "Yeah, just playing games and shit." And then Justn finishes it with, "Then once you turn 18, you just start cam whoring." So he's suggesting that a 16-year-old start diddling herself. I mean, that's pretty creepy, wouldn't you say?
It's a little out of pocket.
To say to us as a 42-year-old.
Yeah.
Yes, Ed?
Speaking as someone who may be 42, again, why is a 16-year-old on Twitter, and why is she poking the bear?
She thinks that she's having a fun text conversation with
That's-
Morty. Oh,
Yeah,
geez.
that's
Oh,
texting. They're
geez.
texting back and forth.
Oh, jeez. Oh, God. Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez, you're into sex slavery. Oh,
Oh,
jeez.
jeez. Oh, I don't know, guys. Oh, jeez.
You should start cam whoring. Oh, jeez.
Maybe she will. Who knows?
Yeah.
Jessica.
Mm. He probably does.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Well, maybe you need some more convincing, Joe. Well, how about slide 4 if you need a little more convincing? Now here the images are blurred out, but it's some guy sucking a dick, I think. And it's every text starts with this image of what is it? Yeah, sorry for spamming the guy with dicks in his mouth. But it says, "You're not awful. We don't have to do that again. I want you to sleep with me tonight." And it's just a million images of a guy sucking a dick, apparently, because he says, "Sorry for spamming the guy with the dicks in his mouth. I just want you to be happy, and I have a fun time here. I'll do whatever you need for that to be the case. Oh, wait, I just want you to be happy and have a fun time here." And then he says, "I like cats and dogs," and it's all separate texts.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It sounds ridiculous. He said like he's always seemed off. Like the very early Rick and Morty shit was real. You know, that
Gay.
reminded me like old school, yeah, gay and like liquid television. Like you'd get like
You
these
are
really
the
creepy.
ones who are the ball lickers.
Yeah, sorry.
Get like some really creepy stuff as well as some really polished things and everything. So, I mean, yeah, taken in a vacuum, that all sounds bad, you know. Or if we're going to go case by case or just one text thread at a time, you know, I don't know what to make of that.
Okay, well, how about another text thread just to wrap it up
Mhm.
and put a bow on what a creep Justn Roiland is. Last slide, please, Ed. This woman that has the handle Allie 9 Inch Nails um, wrote that she said, I'll say more later. For now, I'll just share the types of funny, quote unquote, funny DMs Justn Roiland would send me. Posted and deleted this last night because I was worried about any backlash. But this dude made me, someone who wrote a Rick and Morty concept album, never watch his show again. And the thread that she posted with that has Justin saying, "Can you write a song about 9 dicks of different sized and ethnic origins hanging above your face? And then in the lyrics, describe how they each splatter you with semen. But important, the larger message of the song is about how we are all the same and no more racism." And then it goes on to say, "Who's this Lee character? Why does she have to find parking? Why are you a huge F slur? Answer later." And it ends with, "Sorry, Allie, I'm okay. My fourth wait, sorry, Allie, I'm okay. My fourth glass of wine. This was all off record. Don't break my trust, you asshole. JK, you're all right." So that's what it's like to have a text conversation with Justn Roiland as a 16-year-old girl.
Yeah. You know what we've been as I was going through the Harmon thing,
Yeah.
I was getting echoes of Dan Schneider, and I think maybe I'll talk about it a little bit more in there. But this is very much nerds in love. If you think of the Muppets in space, pigs in space, think of that that intro, nerds in love. This
Yeah.
is what it's like to be a nerd in love. The only difference are we're looking at nerds who have a degree of power, fame, power, and money, and the way that they manipulate people and things like that is questionable, to be kind about it.
Yeah. But
Um,
Justin is running to social media to do it to underage kids, and that makes him
yeah, I think one of the things that I've always thought about is, if we think of Dazed and Confused, when Matthew McConaughey says, "I love these high school girls because I get older and they stay the same age."
yeah.
That's a very male mentality when you look at like old men with 18-year-old girlfriends, or hey, it took me till I was 60 to get the type of money and things that I can attract the women that I wanted to. And I still have this mental image of myself as I'm still 16 or 18. Like it's not weird for me to interact with these women when everybody else around them is looking at the age gap and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Well, I have a Corvette now, so I can do this."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so some people are just like, "I never had a 16-year-old girlfriend. What's
Go
that like?"
ahead, Ed.
So
What?
first off, I have a Corvette. Second,
Oh, you
that is
just
not
popped in to fucking brag about your Corvette?
no,
Get the
no,
fuck
no,
out of
no.
here.
That's not fair. That's not fair because I mean, I am never going to say that an old man
Ed, I
should
meant
date a young girl. But what I'm saying
Act like
is
you're
that,
out of
like,
breath.
fuck you.
All
Ed,
right,
I was talking about a 2024 Corvette. Get the fuck out of here.
go on. Go ahead. Yeah, I did hear something struck me when Carl's been going over Stuttering John's horse shit about when people get victimized as kids, especially narcissists, they get suspended in that kind of mentality. So maybe if he suffered some kind of trauma at that age, he just has this like suspended obsession with women of that age. Like maybe a
Yeah.
16-year-old made fun of his dick when he showed it
Mhm.
to a 16-year-old the first
And I'm
time.
gonna show all of these 16-year-olds my dick now.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's Justn Roiland, who is the animation stylist, creator of Rick and Morty,
The
and the voice
voices.
talent of Rick and Morty. But Dan Harmon is the writer, and I always associated him with all the brilliance of the show. And if you don't know who Dan Harmon is, he created Community, and basically Community and Rick and Morty are the big feathers in his cap.
Most notable. What was it? Heat Wave and Jack, right? Like way back when Channel 101, right? Like way
Right.
back when they were establishing
But also
some of that shit.
let's not forget to bring up Harmontown, which is kind of a middle of Community. Like Rick and Morty was getting off the ground while that was going on. He was seeing his way out of Community and into Rick and Morty while he was doing this fantastic podcast. It's one of the best podcasts. It's not on anymore, but you could probably still find it. I recommend it. It was one of my favorite shows when I first really got into listening to podcasts,
Yeah.
and it's just fantastic. It's really candid. I don't know anybody else that could really do what he did. It's not. I wouldn't even classify it as a podcast. It's like a one. I mean, he's not
Like
there
a
by himself.
confessional.
It's like a one man show, except that he had Spencer and Jeff Davis. Was
Yep.
his co-host, but it's really just like Jeff's there so Dan has somebody to talk to. Jeff's also hilarious. And all
Mhm.
this to say, Harmontown's a terrific podcast. But what happened in the middle of that was the Me Too scandal. And a lot of people were trying to get out in front of allegations that were coming up, on the heels of Weinstein and everyone else. And that
Right.
goes to your point about Hardwick and Aziz. And Dan Harmon kind of fell into that category. But this is
Yeah.
you did most of the research for this, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think you covered a lot of like the roll into it well. So I don't remember if we were listening to it in real time when this happened, right? Like it took us, you and I started listening to this a little, like we went back and listened to all the old episodes, caught up, and then we were kind of rolling through it in real time as well. So I don't know exactly at what phase this occurred, but like you said, what happened was Harvey Weinstein came out, and it was clear that it was like peak times up, really, where a lot of women were coming out and talking about this. And what was happening was this woman was really being she wasn't naming Dan specifically, but she was tweeting about it as far as like my experience. This happened. This is real. Me too. And Dan knew it was him, and they had a bit of a back and forth. And the one thing, if you don't know about Dan Harmon, is he wears all of his shortcomings like on his sleeve, almost to a degree of, well, you can't call me an alcoholic because I call myself an alcoholic all the time. You think I don't know I'm an alcoholic? I say it every day. So well, you're not telling me anything I don't already know. And if you operate like that, then you almost don't have to ever answer to anything because you're just like, I know I'm a piece of shit. And he really functioned a lot in that way. And I think you'll kind of like be able to pick up on it very easily. The problem is he's very charismatic and well spoken, and we'll see in the tweets coming up here. I find it irritating to watch professional writers interact with each other and they're trying to like one up each other. Do you ever use this word in a sentence? Shut the fuck up. Anyway, let's get into the clips here. And my clip one, Dan has advice. Dan was given advice to ignore this, and he's not going to take that advice.
I've had a lot of advice. Don't talk about it. You don't have to talk about it. It's done. Legal advice. Don't talk about it. You open yourself up. The most important advice I've gotten is from women that I respect, that do what I do, that are respected, and that spoke to me privately and said, if you're true to your word and you are sincere about how you want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem, please talk about how you've been part of the problem. That's truly the most helpful thing you can do.
Yeah. So women told me to do this. This should go well.
Yeah, we now know that you can't tell women you think that they're hot. You can only give them tens of thousands of dollars on the internet, or else you're the world's biggest piece of shit. Unless, back in the Laverne and Shirley days, they would just tell Lenny and Squiggy to go fuck themselves. But in 2017, everything is a lawsuit because Trump, I guess.
Yeah. Well, because of Harvey Weinstein at this point, ruining all of Hollywood, by that getting
Trump grabs somebody by the pussy, and then suddenly everything's over with.
So now all the ladies are comparing notes.
Yeah.
So let's see here. The one Dan stuck, the clip that you saw there, that entry, very often the podcast would be just that, right? Or even maybe not Spencer off on the left there. It might have just been Jeff and Dan on stage, and Dan just talking for over 2 hours about every problem that he ever had or made or happened, So
this wasn't just what was happening to him this week.
Right. Yeah. So this wasn't really weird. And even listening to it at the time, I was just like, oh, this is kind of major. But we had heard him talk about relationships and drug abuse or alcoholism many, many times before this. So it wasn't very out of place. And also, I would jump in and say that this is a very controlled environment for him. This seems in a way brave for him to be very open about it like this. But the one thing I would point out is that this is a crowd of supporters that he's pouring his heart out to here. This isn't as heroic as it may come off as we go through here. So Dan would often talk about being authentic and having fierce ownership of apologizing and things like that. So I call this clip Fierce Ownership, and here Dan tries to set the tone for this soliloquy that he's going to deliver here.
Please appreciate, if you're listening to me, that the tightrope I have to walk here is I want to make this a normal part of the process, because it should be healthy and easy and graceful. It should be a thing that can be done and doesn't have to create civil war and hysteria. That doesn't make
the clip just not playing
and attacked. You're not doing me any favors at all. You're only hurting everybody, especially me, if this topic causes you to attack anybody involved. You may think it's in my defense. You may think it's in defense of fairness. I ask you to think about what you think fair is.
So Dan's trying to rein in the army of trolls that he has, because he knows he has all these nerds at his disposal. And this is pre Rick and Morty. I think it's important to maybe point out that he had been fired off of his show. He didn't know what to do with himself, so he's like, "I'll start a podcast." And he played the phone messages between him and Chevy Chase. That got a lot of attention and brought a lot of listeners, me included, into the Harmontown podcast. And so this was just like him, stream of consciousness on stage a lot of the time.
Good point, though. And it should also be noted that he won his way back onto his own show that he was fired off of. He became a problem. They got rid of him. the show kind of took a shittier turn. The ratings went down. It was beloved by fans. They went to bat for Dan. They got him brought back. To this day, it's still a beloved show that is supposedly a movie is coming out because there was a whole another
six
but
seasons in a movie.
yeah, beyond Me Too, hashtag Me Too, there was hashtag 6 seasons in a movie. So they ended up doing the 6 seasons, and the movie is in production. So he kind of went beyond like officially being canceled, a different kind of being canceled, but has now come back the way like a James Gunn did, based on the
James
merits of
Gunn.
his talent and his work.
Yeah, I would think of it more as like Family Guy, when Family Guy got canceled and was brought back,
Mhm.
just based on fan outpouring alone,
Yeah.
that they brought it back.
But
So
this is all the power dynamic is the real issue here because he
yeah, we're
is
gonna get to
the
it.
showrunner. But
Yeah.
this is, I mean, this might sound like a bit, but I mean this sincerely. The way doctors have nurses that kind of keep them company while they're looking at, like, while they're treating female patients. Dan just needs a 50-year-old homely woman following him around tisking every time a woman he looks at a woman filling the lower tray of the copier paper, for a little too long. If it's just like, come on, Dan, let's stay on task here. You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
just because your secretary is talking about the fact that she has a long hard weekend and she's not sure if she's going to be able to cram it all in. You don't need to comment on that, Mr. Harmon. Let's
Put
stay
the
on task. I mean, that's what he really needs.
Yeah. How about one less Tito's today, Dan?
Yeah. What's the other thing about Dan? He's a raging, I mean, not so much these days, but when
Mhm.
Harmontown was on, the show was sponsored by Grey Goose or something. Like he
I think
drank
I
a
think it was
bottle
Tito's.
of vodka every
Yeah,
episode.
yeah. Okay, so in this next clip, here Dan's going to set up the story. So Dan's going to establish the timeline here. We've kind of already talked about it a little.
In 2000 whatever, I can't remember, 2009, 2006, 2000 something, I had the privilege of running a network sitcom, and I was attracted to a employee. I really want to be careful about that language. I think a huge part of the problem is a culture of feeling things that you think are unique and significant because they're happening to you.
Right. So some of my notes here we've already said. Like, Dan's self-awareness is what makes him so likable. The owning of his imperfections is like what makes him so relatable. The fact that he's not like an Adonis, right? Like, people find him very relatable at times. Like, I had always related him in a way to like Johnny Cash, where it's just like we're all sinners, right? Like, I'm a sinner just like you. That not Johnny Cash was like religious, but Dan's not that. But he is like, hey, I'm a shitty loser just like you are.
Yeah.
Um, and
I'll say
then
this about nerdy, maladjusted white guys. We genuinely don't understand how creepy we are or how
yeah,
creepy we can be. A creepy
mhm,
white guy in 2016 thinks that telling a woman how hard she makes his dick is a compliment.
yeah,
That,
yeah,
in the
yeah,
early 2000s, it's that
yeah.
you don't know how the men didn't care or know about the female experience of that.
No, they genuinely don't get it, and he'll talk a little bit more about it. I think it's also to point out right now that what we are watching is him trying to get ahead of it. We've already talked about Harvey Weinstein, the Time's Up movement. He knows this is kind of out there looming, and so this is a crafted response trying to get ahead of it. So he's not a victim of everything that he did. He's trying to take himself to task
Yeah,
over.
It's
these
funny
things.
though too because he did end up going on to because he said in the beginning, I'm talking to other writers and like women that I respect about how to handle this, and he
Right.
did go on to start a podcast called Whiting Wongs with
I was just
a
going to
woman.
bring that up.
Oh, I'm sorry, not to squash your point.
No, you're not. You're not.
So even so that was him getting out in front of every racial joke that he ever told.
Right.
The same thing
Right.
that he's doing here about all his sexual misconduct. He did the same thing with any,
Racism.
me so sorry thing that he ever did.
Yeah. No, and also, but to give the smallest amount of credit, what he's doing here and what he is suggesting is to do that and just be like kind of be a little self-reflective, like you're everyone else should be like, oh, I didn't realize I was being sexist. I didn't realize how misogynistic
It's called
and
growing as a
racist it was.
person.
Yeah. Right.
He's just you're watching him grow as a person and grow with the times in real time on stage in front of an
Right.
audience.
Right.
And people need to be given that chance and not retroactively be canceled for shit that wasn't I mean, maybe it wasn't cool, but it wasn't a crime, 20 years ago. Everybody wants to run back to 20 years ago. I love bringing it up to the Scary Movie 3. Jeremy Piven uses the N-word. It's like that was a
Mhm.
popular movie. It's
Mhm.
and that would never get made today. They wouldn't do it. But
Mhm.
they were doing it. I'm not saying it was okay, but people
Right.
were screaming the F slur in every 80s movie.
They didn't sometimes people didn't know how out of pocket it was, basically, and it only now is it dawning on people, like
Oh,
how
people didn't care.
inappropriate it is and
People
was,
didn't
I guess.
people didn't care about the gay experience back then. They didn't care if gays were offended. They didn't care if black people were offended. And it's
There
just
was
like
no money in that.
yeah, they're just paying more mind to it now,
Right, right.
which they should. But
Which is what Dan is doing here.
yeah,
He's just like, it didn't even occur to me, basically. So in the
I'll
next
never miss a chance to bring up the fact that Jeremy Piven said the N-word though. Bank on it.
Okay. In my clip 4 called Crimes here, Dan talks about the crimes of being attracted to an employee.
And saying things like I had feelings for and I fell for and all these things. I mean, the most clinical way I can put it in fessing up to my crimes is that I was attracted to a writer that I had power over because I was a showrunner. And I knew enough to know that these feelings were bad news. That was easy enough to know. I knew that they ran the risk of undercutting people's faith in my judgment.
Yeah, so this whole thing that he delivers, like I think the whole thing is like 10 minutes or something like that.
Mhm.
This should be shown in like sexual harassment trainings at work. Everything, the whole story, he lays the whole story out, and then also just his lack of awareness, full turn to being aware of it and addressing it head on. Um, it is like a whole arc of crime recognition and atonement, basically.
I'll say
Um,
this though, Joe, not to interrupt you, but
go for it.
the very notion that this woman might a scenario where she's actually into him, where he confesses his feelings for her and and it turns out that she actually likes him. It's like disregard he's looking at it from the perspective in the future where he already knows how it played out. But at the time, you never know until you ask. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
was it a crime back then that he actually wanted her to be into him
Well,
and tried
we'll
to
get more.
find out if she would have been?
We'll get more. We get further into it. You know, it all gets laid bare. So, but I think the thing that maybe is never really discussed is probably the idea that a female writer is going to either suck up to her boss or be maybe a little nicer to him than she could or should just because of that dynamic. I mean,
Yeah.
you always want to please and impress your boss. So she
Right.
may be being nicer to him, it's not in an attraction way, but he might not be recognized. That's the other thing about nerds, when it comes to like emotions and social interactions and everything, is just like, oh, she's being nice to me, she
Right.
must like me.
Yeah.
No, you're her boss,
Yeah.
so
Unlike
that's
all
something that's missed.
Yeah, unlike all of my interactions where I'm just like, "Hey, do you wanna go out a date with me?" And then the woman looks at you like she just poked a finger through the toilet paper while she was wiping her ass, and she's like, "No, I don't wanna go out on a date with you. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I just realized that I'm gay. Thank you,
Yeah.
goodbye."
No, I thought you were
This
a good
woman actually
candidate.
had to pretend that she likes Dan for her
No,
job.
I thought you were gonna be a candidate to walk my dog weekly. No, I don't wanna date you. What do you work for, Bacardi? No, I'm in love with you.
Yeah.
Um, so in clip 5, I called toxic masculinity, Dan talks about, not dealing with his feelings properly.
Her faith in her talent, the other writers' respect for me, the entire production, the audience. I knew that I wasn't doing anybody any favors by feeling these things. And so I did the cowardly, easiest, laziest thing you could do with feelings like that. And I didn't deal with them. And in not dealing with them, I made everybody else deal with them, especially her.
Right. So I think when people hear the term toxic masculinity, you think of some frat bro hanging brain and high-fiving his boys, with his skibbity riz. The truth is that this is the more common scenario of toxic masculinity. I think I screwed that up. Toxic masculinity. An
Yeah.
insecure guy that doesn't know how to navigate gender dynamics. This is much closer to the truth than just some alpha bro guy, in a Corvette.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I mean, I'm making a lot of jokes and pointing out like nuances. Yeah, I'm pointing out like the nuances of maybe like how things might have gone differently for Dan. But I have all the respect for Dan in this moment, laying this all bare and trying to justify how he handled this. I would have fired the whole writing staff and I started a new show with no women and coming this fall, Boys Academy from Trucker Andy.
Dan Schneider's writing room for the Amanda show, where it's 6 30-something guys,
Oh,
shooting
right.
each other with Nerf guns.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But so for just, but that's the other thing about this. It's what is the right answer for this situation? How is this supposed to be handled where you're just like, oh, well, I have feelings for one of my employees. I guess I should quit my own show. I can't fire her, right? Like, or
mhm.
else I'm the bad guy. So what are you supposed to do with it? Except maybe just pay out her contract and give her a reference to work for somebody that is not in love with her.
Yeah. I mean, the answer is be a professional. The answer is to not do these things, but we'll see as we go through here that that's not what's going to happen. In clip 6, Dan reflects on the impact this had on his personal life at the time.
Flirty, creepy, everything other than overt enough to constitute betraying your live-in girlfriend to whom you're going home every night, who is actually smart enough and respectful enough to ask you, do you have feelings for that young writer that you're talking about, that you're paying all this attention to? And saying to her, no, because the trick is if you lie to yourself, you can lie to everybody. It's really easy.
Yeah. Okay. So I think now is probably a good time to establish who this is. He's talking about, because this all comes out in Twitter and things like that. He's
Oh,
talking
I didn't
about
know this.
somebody. Her name is, hopefully I'm getting the name right, Megan Gans. okay, is her name. So let me just pull up her IMDb credits real quick. I know that she got her start on Dimitri Martin's Important Things when
Yeah.
that was a show on Comedy Central. So she cut her teeth there, and that got her the job on Community. Um, so one of the things that's kind of going to play out here is like her concern for her career. And I just want to set, like, she didn't know it at the time, but I'll just say that her writing credits or executive producer, there you go, Ed. It includes, she went on from Community to work as executive producer for Modern Family,
Scroll
Mythic
back up.
Quest,
Mythic Quest. I like Mythic Quest. Oh,
Always
all right.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
You could do better,
Mythic,
Dan.
yeah, Mythic Quest, The Last Man on Earth. I really liked that show.
Yeah, that's a good
So
one.
I just want to set the stage here because we're going to hear some tweets, we're going to hear some comments, we're going
Oh,
to hear
her career is over because of this.
her questioning how this could affect her career. What I just want to say, she did just fine. Okay,
Yeah, she landed on her feet. Everybody.
this wasn't Dan Schneider harassing writers and the one woman went on as a success and the other one quit the industry. Okay. She moved on. She was the Russo brothers of Community. I don't know if everybody knows the Russo brothers cut their teeth in Community and went on to lead the Avengers. Like she went on to have a brilliant career. Everything's fine. Okay.
Go check out the paintball episode, the first paintball episode. The Die Hard paintball episode, you'll see where the Russo brothers were gonna move on to bigger and better things.
Yeah. So yeah, I brought up the Dan Schneider comparison. Also, the delivery of this apology, of those apologies, like comparing Dan Schneider to Dan Harmon here, right? Like when we looked at the Dan Schneider thing, how manicured that whole scenario was, and what a controlled environment that was versus this controlled environment.
Thanks, Boogie.
Yeah. And so obviously Dan Harmon's pulling this off much better than Dan Schneider did. In my clip 7, I called this "Nuh-uh." Dan says, "I'm not the problem. You're the problem."
And so that's what I continued to do, telling myself and anybody that threatened to confront me with it, that if you thought what I was doing was creepy or flirty or unprofessional, then it's because you were the sexist. You were jealous. I was supporting this person. I'm a mentor. I'm a feminist. It's your problem, not mine. It's you're the one that actually is seeing things through that lens.
Andy, do you have the J Muse ball lickers drop, please?
Of course I do.
You are the ones who are the ball lickers.
Yeah.
How do you even like cocaine? I just have a lot to do this weekend. Mind your own business.
I don't like cocaine. I just like the smell.
Yeah.
Okay. In clip 8, don't take no for an answer. Women want to be pursued, Andy.
It's not as if this person didn't repeatedly communicate to me the idea that what I was doing was divesting her of a recourse to integrity. I just didn't hear it. And it's because it didn't profit me to hear it. And this was, after all, happening to me, right?
Yeah. So ever heard of romance? The thrill of the chase? Love at first sight is so boring when it's reciprocated, Andy. Like,
ever heard of Pepe Le Pew?
I met your dad and he really liked me, but I liked Chad. But finally I realized that your dad was the one for me when Chad got killed in Vietnam. Whatever.
Now
we don't.
She's forced to say things like, "Wow, I'm so flattered, but it's a bad look at work, and I think I'm gay now as of this moment that I learned you like me." So, all the things that white losers like me and Dan hear from women.
Yeah. But it is an important, that's the one thing that you can't get away from in this story. is that she was trying to tell him the whole time that this was either a bad idea or not going to work out. And if I said I was going to victim blame the whole time, if she did anything wrong, it was not being more forceful with just like, dude, I don't like you. You know, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with your boss. That's the problem with these power dynamics and everything. And like, that's what, you know, I'll get into my problems with this scenario later on. But one of the things that it was good for was that guys like Dan or myself or anybody else were not picking up on this dynamic in any way because it didn't affect us. You know, it's like we perpetrate that on people. I'm throwing myself in the mix here, but like that's you perpetrating it onto somebody and you not being aware at all of how you're affecting the world around you. In clip 9, Dan knows how to fix this. I know what I'll do.
After a season of playing it that way, I broke up with my girlfriend, who I had lied to the whole time while lying to myself. Lied to her about why I was breaking up with her because I thought that would make having inappropriate feelings for a coworker appropriate if I wasn't involved.
Yeah. Good news. I'm single now. I know that's why you didn't want to date me, but now we can be together. Wait, what? I'm still a fat drunk asshole? Now
Yeah.
I'm just a single fat drunk asshole.
To his credit, that is the right thing to do when you realize you're into somebody that's not your girlfriend. You should break up with your girlfriend that you're not. And most people would just hang on to the old one until they lock down the new one. So point Harmon.
It is a good move, but it's not. Yeah, that is the having a bit of integrity, but it doesn't have anything to do with like the overall problem. It's just like him making himself feel better. He's putting himself into a position to be the hero or whatever.
He's putting himself in a position to possibly get with her.
Yeah. Could we pull Megan Gann's picture back up here just to see the smoke show that Dan was like ruining his life over right now? Do you still have that, Ed?
Yeah, she does kind of look like Poppy from Mythic Quest, who is not hot.
As we were waiting for that, let me see here.
Oh, he's got
Don't
it there.
worry about it. What?
Here it comes.
Oh, okay. I should have had the. Yeah. Anyway, it's just like not very.
You're throwing away Community for this.
Right. I mean, but also there's
It must have been really funny, Joe. It must have been fucking hilarious.
A level of authenticity there too for Dan of just like, well, it's not like I'm into Christy Brinkley or, you know, whoever somebody who wasn't old as shit would say other than me, you know, she's a real looker. So in clip 10, learning and growing, Dan frames this so well. Like he frames this so well. I've heard this. I want you to learn from my mistakes. And this is how a professional writer says that.
We're all growing and
I
learning.
want you to be the
single
one
day.
to examine this and every step of the way decide for yourself where I'm making mistakes. I don't want to explain to you what I've learned. I want you to look at this and I want it to sound relatively unremarkable to you because that's the danger. I broke up with my girlfriend, then I went full steam into creeping on my employee. Now it was even less appropriate after all. Now I wasn't in danger of being a bad person.
All right. So we're about
I don't want,
halfway
I
through.
don't want you. I want you to look at this from an unbiased opinion, but I was lurking in the bushes with a heart on. It's like, you're kind of painting a picture for me, Dan, to arrive at a certain conclusion.
Hey everyone, I know you love me, but hang on a minute. So we're about halfway through the clips. So I think this is a good time to point out that we're watching a master at work. You know, this is a professional writer. He's crafted the words and the situation here, full control in front of a crowd that adores him. And I'm one of them. I'm fully buying this. I fucking admire it. I think, Andy, you just said that. This is top tier apologizing. When we rank apologizing, I always hold Elliot Spitzer up because he was, a DA, an orator, somebody who speaks in front of people all the time. This is another one. This is almost better than that.
Well, listen,
Because you can,
that was a trope of Harmontown. All of the relationship counseling that he went through with, what was her name?
Aaron McGathy.
Yeah, they went through a lot of shit, and he would always talk about the steps to apologizing being like
Mhm.
taking accountability and
Right.
promising to change. He knows the playbook of apologies.
Commitment to change. Right.
Yes, and I 100% was hanging on to those things because of Harmontown when we started this show.
Yep,
Most of what I knew
100%.
about apologizing was because of Dan Harmon from Harmontown.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so he knows what he's doing here for sure.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. He knows all the tricks, all the
I,
manipulation.
I don't even think it's tricks though. I mean, I do. I mean, yes, he's trying to get out in front of this, and the best tools is good.
The
Thank
tools.
you. Yes. Okay.
He knows all the tools. Let's use the right word. We're dealing with a wordsmith here, so let's get the words right. So, in clip 11, how many times do I have to say it? Did you think it could get worse? It does.
And then after that season, I got overt about my feelings after it was wrapped because now, and said, "Oh, I love you," and she said the same thing she'd been saying the entire time. Please, don't you understand that focusing on me like this, liking me like this, preferring me like this, I can't say no to it. And when you do it, it makes me unable to know whether I'm good at my job.
And I wanted to bring up her career beforehand because, like, for her to be like, I don't know if I'm good at you fucking know. They're not handing out writing jobs as you get off the bus in Hollywood. You worked on Dimitri Martin, 10 episodes of Dimitri Martin before you started on Community. We all know you're good at your job. You went on to have a huge
Really?
career.
Oh, I don't
Yeah.
know. How many personal days did you take because you just can't even today? Take being good at your job and divide it by how many of those days you took, and that's the number, okay? How do I know if you're a woman
And
trying to
Dimitri
decide
Martin
if
does
you're
not.
good at your job?
Clip 12 I called heel turn. This is what a Chad will never understand, Andy.
And because I finally got to the point where I said to her, "Oh, this is, I love you," because that's what I thought it was when you target somebody for 2 years. And it was therefore rejected that way. I was humiliated. And so I continued to do the cowardly thing and continued to do the selfish thing.
Right. So this isn't beta male shit. This is gamma male shit. This is incredible Hulk level radiation of and loser combat. How an unattractive genius fights. Okay. Like this is superhero loser shit at this point.
Right. I mean, take it from Dan, putting it out there sooner than later so that you can get the rejection over with and move on to the next rejection is the best thing that you could do, not dragging this shit out and hoping that a woman that thinks that you're a creep will stop thinking you're a creep is a long, sad road to hoe. It sucks. So do not pine after women that you're never going to get for multiple years. Take it from me.
So in my clip 13, Dark Dan goes from bad to worse.
Now I wanted to teach her a lesson. I wanted to show her that if she didn't like being liked in that way, then oh boy, she should get over herself. After all, if you're just going to be a writer, then this is how just writers get treated. And that was probably the darkest of it all. I'm going to assume that when she tweets about it, and refers to trauma, that's probably it, because I drank, I took pills, I crushed on her and resented her for not reciprocating it. And the entire time I was the one writing her paychecks and in control of whether she stayed or went.
Right. So this is a tale as old as time, man. If you want to understand the mind of a regular guy who isn't lucky with the ladies, it's on full display here. Okay.
Yeah.
The only
He started
difference is that
drinking moonshine like his father and his father before him.
the only
I mean,
difference is go.
I'm actually getting creeped out now because just like thinking about this from the woman's POV, which nobody wants to do, but just think about if your boss right now, whoever your boss is. I hope that you're a guy who has a guy boss. Think about your boss hitting on you and what
Mhm.
that would feel like.
Right, right.
It
Yeah.
would suck. I mean, I don't have a guy boss, but
Yeah.
my boss right now, if they started hitting on me, I would jump out a fucking 4-story window.
Hmm. Yeah. So the only difference here is that Dan is super rich and talented and is also openly talking about one of the most humiliating things he's ever perpetrated on another person at this point. It's just like that's where you have to give him a little bit of credit for saying, "Hey, I did this." But yeah, this is he's crossed the Rubicon of normalcy at this point. Um, so in this clip I called relationships, am I right?
And whether she felt good about herself or not, and said horrible things, just treated her cruelly, pointedly, things that I would never, ever, ever have done if she had been male. And if I had never had those feelings for her. And I lied to myself the entire time about it. And I lost my job. I ruined my show. I betrayed the audience. I destroyed everything. And I damaged her internal compass.
So I think when Dan got fired from Community, there was a lot of speculation on why, and mostly what came out was that he was just kind of like hard to deal with. But I think what it sounds like here is this was almost the entire reason.
Hmm.
Was that he was such a creep that she probably went to HR on some level, and this was well known and certain like there was just he was probably walking up the razor's edge of acceptability on set, mostly because of this, and they were looking just for any reason to get rid of him. So
Thanks a
remember
lot,
this,
Dan.
kids.
Now I got to sit through the season 5, episode 1 musical number. That's a fucking travesty of an episode on that show because
Yeah.
of this.
Yeah. Creator, head writer, in charge of the whole show. Remember this lesson, kids. Just because it's yours doesn't mean it can't be taken away from you. Okay. I mean, it really should be a lesson here for anybody to understand that just because you made it, just because you're in control of it, doesn't mean that you can do anything that you want with it.
Happens all the time.
So, mhm. So in clip 15, here's why we're all here, getting away with it.
I never did it before and I will never do it again, but I certainly wouldn't have been able to do it if I had any respect for women. I was thinking about them as different creatures. I was thinking about the ones that I liked as having some special role in my life. And I did it all by not thinking about it. So I just want to say, in addition to obviously being sorry, I want to say I did it by not thinking about it. And I got away with it by not thinking about it.
So you may have heard me say this before. If you don't take something into consideration, that makes you inconsiderate. Right. What I like about this whole apology is his self awareness, the acceptance of his shortcomings and past failings. If you've ever liked somebody that did not like you back, I think you can easily relate to all of this. For Dan, it's a lot more high stakes and public, and the cost and exposure is next level. But for a nerd person, I think anybody can look at this and be like, I could easily fall into this trap, you know,
Oh, yeah.
just liking somebody that you should not and is not reciprocating. But
Yeah. No, I
um,
I give him a lot of respect for just putting this out in public, for us to pick apart right now. We don't even, we have no right to. We weren't
Hang
there.
on.
We don't know, but
Hang on a minute,
he's
Andy.
giving us that chance.
Hang on. Let's look at the tweets.
And if she hadn't mentioned something on Twitter, I would have continued to not have to think about it. Although I did walk around with my stomach in knots about it, but I wouldn't have had to talk about it. And the last and most important thing I can say is just think about it. No matter who you are at work, no matter where you're working, no matter what field you're in, no matter what position you have over or under or side by side with somebody, just think about it. You gotta, because if you don't think about it, you're going to get away with not thinking about it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Twitter. Andy, when you decapitate somebody and the cops start coming around and bringing it up and asking a lot of questions, and then you say to yourself, why didn't I think about this? It's so easy to ignore shit until someone starts shoving it in your face.
Why can't murderers think about what it's like to be murdered?
Yeah. Let's see here. I have the tweets. So let's go over here real
You're like
quick.
Arby's in that way.
We have the tweets. Okay, so on January 2nd, 2018, Megan Gann's tweets, care to be more specific? Redemption follows allocution, which this is what I was saying about writers one-upping each other with words.
Yeah, you lost me.
Yeah, right. Dan on January 3rd says, was just shown this, and a previous subtweet, I think, was about me. I didn't want to add narcissism to injury by naming you without permission, but I've talked on my podcast about the lines I crossed. I will talk about it more in any way that you think is just. I'm deeply sorry. Then on the 3rd, Dan also says, I'm filled with regret and a lot of foggy memories about abusing my position, treating you like garbage. I would feel a lot of relief if you told me there was a way to fix it. I'll let you call the shots. Till then, at least know I was an awful boss and a selfish baby. And then she says, I wish my memories were foggier. I wish there was a way to fix it. It took me years to believe in my talent again, to trust a boss when he complimented me and not cringe when he asked for my number. I was afraid to be enthusiastic, knowing it might be turned against me later. Once again, she's already had a great career, by the way. Just not saying any of this is good, but I'm just saying she throws this like questioning her success, especially now in the aftermath of it. I feel like that's a little unfair, but and then she goes, you want relief? So do I. I want to watch the first episode of television I wrote again without remembering what came after. Figure out how to give me that relief, and I'll return the favor. And then Dan says, I'm disgusted and sorry that I stained our show and your talent with my selfish, childish shit. I get that I can't erase it, don't want to, but I have felt sick about it. I have kept a wall between me and coworkers, and I have preached doing so as gospel because of how I treated you. Then he says, I also never wanted to bring your name into it because you had a right to your own career and narrative, and the things I regretted most was impinging on that. I'd done it enough, so I kept it anonymous, but have warned everyone, don't do what I did.
So this is all public on Twitter.
This is how him and her going back and forth on Twitter.
That's raw too. I mean, that's I don't know a lot of guys that would just
address their victim directly.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's crazy.
My big thing on this, guys, is that in all three of our lives, we have women that are very successful.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And have done like really great things. And personally, I've had some women that have worked for me that I hope anyway that I have empowered to do great things and do good things, and have also gone on to do great things. Now, I've never necessarily hit on them or thought that like I might have some chance with them, but like at some point in time here, and I'm not, I don't want to degrade Miss Gans on this at all, but at some point in time, like, at what point does, hey, you got to step up versus, yeah, I was a piece of shit. I'm really trying to apologize. Like, where does that even out? Because I feel like
We'll get there.
in all
We'll
of
get-
this, he's okay. Because
We'll get
I
there.
feel like he's really trying to eat some shit for this.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
We'll get there. We'll get
All right.
there.
But
Let me
to
finish
your
up.
point, though, I do know that successful women that we all know in the workplace do have to put up with a ration of nonsense and horse shit and bullshit and creepiness that your average guy never would have to. And I'm not saying that no guy ever has, but it's just more prominent for females in the workplace across the board.
For sure. Just even if it's not sexual, just respect or capability. You know, they fight an uphill.
Oh,
battle.
now I have to respect women too. I'm out.
All right, let's finish the tweets here. So Dan then says, I'll reiterate, if and when you want me to do something, a public letter, a cosign on your letter, a book, pamphlet, public whatevering, I will support it. I will nod. I will verify. I will suffer and atone. But it has to be at your behest, or it's just more Dan-splaining. Then she says, I haven't listened to your podcast, but I don't think walls are the answer unless you put them up with male coworkers too. Otherwise, you're falling into the Mike Pence school of gender relations that says men can't be trusted with women's phone numbers. Then she says, I appreciate your attempts to make amends and your acknowledgement of fault. That doesn't sound as tidy as I forgive you, but that's not my feeling yet. I'm working towards it all the time for my benefit more than yours. And then
That's her
in the
saying
end,
that,
she
or
says,
that was
this is her saying that. And then she says, but if I can offer this, it's good to recognize power dynamics, but it's also good to recognize you're no different from those you employ. You're not a king on a hilltop, nor a beast in a labyrinth. Isolation isn't always best. Connection breeds empathy. Empathy allows growth. So that is that. And then I think there was one more thing I captured. I don't remember where I got it from, but it says on Twitter, Gans responded to Harmon's confession by ultimately forgiving him and urging people to listen to his statement. It's not rationalizing or justifying or making excuses, Gans wrote. He doesn't just vaguely acknowledge some general wrongdoing in the past. He gives a full account. What I didn't expect was the relief I'd feel just hearing him say these things actually happened. I didn't dream it. I'm not crazy. Ironic that the only person who could give me that comfort is the one person I'd never ask. So good on Dan for that part of it. So
go ahead.
With all that, like, he's aware of his fuck up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she's acknowledging that he's aware of his fuck up, right?
Right.
Is she still dragging him through the shit for this?
No, I think that last bit was that she heard this whole clip here and accepted it, basically, and said this was way more than she, I think, ever expected or thought that he would
way
offer.
more than anyone ever gets in this.
100%. And that's why I'm saying, like understanding that there was a power dynamic, like, speaking from personal experience, there has been power dynamics in the past. And knowing where that line is, it sometimes gets very gray. Right? And
it's fact very case by case. You know, some people like these
100%.
work wife, work relationship.
Yes.
The flirting is what gets you through the day, like some people would say, man or woman, you know. So
yeah,
you never know.
And I feel like that this whole thing and him coming out, I'm glad that, I don't want to say for once, that's not the right terminology, but I'm glad that she understands that he's actually like, hey, I'm a giant piece of shit. I did some really, really shitty shit.
Mhm.
I'm
Okay.
going to acknowledge it.
Let me just go ahead and shit all over everything, all the points we just made.
Yeah.
In clip 17, I called this one at the time. It may have felt like this. So it says, I'm going to go ahead and disagree with this last clip.
We're living in a good time right now because we're not going to get away with it anymore. And if we can make it a normal part of our culture that we think about it and possibly talk about it, then maybe we can get to a better place where that stuff doesn't happen.
So I would say this was 2018. We are now 6 years past this, 6 years into the experiment of men stepping aside. We've overcorrected as men, in my opinion, stepping aside and accepting the backseat, especially in Dan's field of writing in Hollywood, has become an absolute disaster. Disney, Marvel, Star Wars, the way that the DEI has like come in and that they've leaned into it has destroyed. Is like we often talk about social media people, like people coming for Colleen Ballinger, coming for Jake Paul, of these audiences growing up and destroying what they liked in the past. It feels like all of Hollywood is trying to destroy any patriarchal properties that they had in the past. There's just like, we're just not going to do this anymore. And they think it's for the best. And they're pissing on the ashes of successful properties while not backfilling that void. It's just like, okay, if you're mad that Star Wars was like had a lot of powerful men in it and not a lot of powerful women, then go create those properties that have it. Don't make Luke Skywalker drink tit milk and be a loser, you know?
Did you watch
So
The Acolyte yet, Joe?
no, I purposely didn't.
The only white people in it are there to get killed.
I purposely didn't because I didn't want any interest in it, like even hate watching it. I didn't want it to affect any type of successful algorithm that they might have going, because it's just shit. And they refuse to. They're celebrating the death of everything that we liked, and it's disgusting, to be perfectly honest. And it's just like they don't have any ideas. They don't have new ideas. They're incapable of making a show with a strong female character that stands on its own. Like they just can't do it. I mean, by all means, go do it. I would love it. So
you know
now
what's
we're
good?
just
Kate, Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I mean, it's basically just John Wick with a female John Wick, but at least it's not John Wick.
Dan's always been outspoken about like Joseph Campbell's hero journey and the writing formula and the template for good storytelling and writing. And do you remember the Ghost of Kiev, when the Ukraine-Russia thing happened? That there was like this lone pilot flying around Ukraine, taking out Russian military installations and stuff like that.
Yes.
We rely on stories like this to inspire people. And what we've now decided is that we're going to inspire our girls and our women to go fight our wars for us. It was just like, you're not inspiring any boys to be heroes anymore. All you're doing is telling them to shut up and get out of the fucking way because you've had it too good for so long. And the kids, the young men who are coming of age, have no inspiration because you've decided that Luke Skywalker was toxic or something, you know. And it's just like, there's no motivation, there's no inspiration. And the only inspiration is we're going to have, you know, my 80-pound daughter go fight a war because she's a hero now. Whatever, you know, like that. It makes zero sense. We're going to put the future of our race on the line by sending the women who give birth to our children. It was just like, no, they need to be heroes now. They need to be everything. You need to be the mother and the hero. It's that's all I'm saying is like, we've drastically overcorrected. And somebody like Dan Harmon, especially in this situation, was the problem then. But it doesn't mean that we can't have these stories and things like that. And I would argue until Dan Harmon comes and writes a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie, that those properties are lost to us forever. And we don't have any inspiration for our young men anymore because we're only inspiring women now. And that's
we all agree that Madam Web sucks.
All right.
Yeah.
So
all right.
In our last and final clip, stand down, super fans. Dan's pleas for sanity.
Please don't hurt her. Please don't make this worse on anybody but me. And let's move on. I'm bad at ending things. I'm gonna now have a drink.
I think it sounds like you know exactly how to end things. Go.
Let's go. Yeah, I mean, I think that he did a great job with that. I'm gonna have to give him this.
So sorry, so sincerely sorry.
And I'll give Justn Roiland this.
Fuck you!
God, I miss Harmontown though. What a good show.
Yeah, I was seriously considering going back to listen to the whole thing again. It's fucking great. Yeah.
What I don't
like
agree
said,
with is everybody not signing up for our Patreon, Joe. Like, what the fuck?
don't do that.
Doing? And what I do want to agree with is all the people that did. People like Simon, MC, Hull and Oates, Leo, Fun Kilo, Tigerian Rift, Aaron Lewis, Kyle. I don't want to use last names. Ballison, Nicola, Doug, Hunter, Duke, Tyler, Bob, Principled Uncertainty, Sean,
Hero.
Orange, Julius, Brian, Notorious Cretin, Waylon, Bad at Karate, Tony, Genesis, Wahid, Kate, Ray Guitard, Kyle, SJ, Hank, Jackie Marlowe, Ann, and Trevor. These are all of my heroes.
Andy, I heard that. I heard Principled Uncertainty was the ghost of Kiev. That's what I heard.
Yeah, I heard that too. He's a hero. So I really want to thank those people, and I want to thank all the people that are on there for free. You can sign up to our Patreon for free, and there is content there. So even if you don't want to support the show financially, for just $5, where you get a free mini-sode, you get free access to my horseshit Far Cry from the Dabbleverse things that I'm putting on YouTube. And you also get the video version of this. But if you just want to sign up for free, there's little teaser things that are all available there. So just joining the Patreon for free is worth your while. And we've superseded our goal of beating the creep off Instagram following, but I still need to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram and rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts, because it helps the algorithm. We need more people to find the show. So if you want to support the show for free in that way, that would be great.
Yeah, don't let Vinny's creep off button down Hawaiian shirt sway you in following them over us. You know, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Fashion plate.
All right. So until next week, I'm Andy Q Public for Joe Sixpack saying, stay sorry.